It's one guy that Padres fans know pretty well, and it's because it seems like when a Padres topic comes up, he's negative about the Padres, and it is Mr. Brian Kenny. He had a segment with Dan O'Dowd on MLB Network where he wouldn't shut up and let the former GM talk. And he said that 1-0 teams is what he thinks would take Fernando Tatis Jr. in his contract. He's so worried about what would happen when Tatis is older and the backloaded contract. He's more worried about that than the talent that Fernando has and what he could give to another team. So here is this conversation between Brian Kenny and Dan O'Dowd on MLB Network the other day.
Because I thought the Padres are kind of locked into their deal. They can't do a rebuild because they have these unmovable contracts. They just did an extension with Machado. Obviously, they just signed Bogarts, and including Fernando Tatis's contract. You disagree?
Well, I don't disagree in the sense that Machado, Bogarts,
but Tatis.
Specifically Tatis, I do think he's movable, BK, for a couple different reasons. Number one, he's 25 years old. You can look at 4 contracts in the game that were moved. Stanton, Cano, Arenado, Fielder, large money contracts, all aged 28 through 30. He's only 25 years old. 2, he's a premium defender at a particular position, which is right field. Won a Gold Glove.
It's not the particular position you want, though.
No, okay, but let me just finish my arguments here.
Okay, go ahead.
Before you blow them up.
Okay, go ahead.
And he is, even in what you might consider a down year compared to his past year, he was a 4, and FWAR was 4.2. So my assumption is he's going to be that kind of player, which is a 4 to 5 WAR player per year. I've identified pretty much like 9 clubs that I think that he's movable to, because I think he brings something that's hard to find with our game, which is power, right-handed power, premium position, which is right field of the outfield positions, and speed and durability. And so I do think he's movable because I think he fills a niche. It's 28. His AAV on his deal starting next year is 28.1. I'm assuming you're going to have to take some money back. It's going to end up somewhere in that low 20 area. So I do think it's of the contracts that he has, I do think he is a movable.
I just completely disagree with you, and you're laying out things, and yet you're seeing it through a certain prism that kind of warps things. The money that's owed. Here's what I'm a GM. I'm looking at it. I'm worried about paying Fernando Tatis, age 30 to age 35, to the tune of $36 million a year.
All right, pause that. Okay, that's a lot of money, but what have we seen in baseball? The money goes up on free agents. Like the big free agents per year, it feels like the money goes up and up and up. And by the way, he's talking about age 30 to age 35. Boy, you think he's going to fall off a cliff? And by the way, Nando is 25 years old. If you're a GM acquiring that contract, you're probably not going to be the GM of that team in 2030. Like, why are you worrying about that? You should be acquiring Fernando for the guy that he is, the superstar player that he is, and the great defense that he can give you, and the athleticism.
So it's backloaded. That's the problem, is that the contract's backloaded. Well, smart for the club, but not smart for the team that would be trading for him. Take a look at his numbers before his drug suspension and after his drug suspension. And this is a real-world issue that you must confront. Before he was suspended for using a performance-enhancing drug, he's an all-time great. He's Rogers Hornsby at shortstop, 369 on base, 596 slugging, OPS plus 100 being league average is 160. That's as a young kid, as a skinny shortstop. He's a monster. He's an all-time great. Since then, since the suspension, 321 on base, 446. I'm speaking lower because they're not making as much noise. A 112 OPS plus. He's a vastly different player. Also, he's not playing shortstop, so you're saying, yeah, he had outrageous defensive metrics, but in right field. And so far this year, you know what his defensive metrics are? Good. 0 and 0. So to think he's going to be a plus 27 the way it was last year, look, he adjusted to right field. Great. He deserves credit for that. But right now, those numbers are not going to hold. Even if he's a plus fielder, he's a plus fielder in right field, and he's hitting to the tune of a 112, not playing shortstop, $36 million a year? Yeah. No, thank you.
Well, I can't argue with you, and I won't.
All right, pause that. The point that he brings up about post-steroid suspension, right? And I'm sure Dodger fans will want to bring that point up, and Tatis haters will want to bring that point up. I guess Brian Kenny didn't do his research about the surgeries that Fernando had as well, that played a role, that he was tired at the end of last year. He didn't have a full off season. He was having multiple surgeries. The adjustment to face big league pitching back from a suspension, it's May 1st here, so it may take a little bit of time for him to get really back to Fernando Tatis Jr. Just seems like he hates the Padres.
See, there's age regression built into that. I'm not sure I'm concerned about the age 30, 31, 32. 33 on becomes, it's a little bit problematic without a shadow of a doubt.
I don't know who he is, though, here. That's the basic
Well,
thing.
I'm just
who
saying
is
to
he
you,
exactly?
okay, I'm saying to you, worst case scenario for me, he's a 4-WAR player. If you want to take $8 million a year as a 4-WAR player, that's $32 million a year, kind of almost around where his contract
I've never
is.
bought that number, though, as far as how much.
Okay, I'm just saying, from a mythology standpoint, I don't think the contract is grossly overstated from what his value could be as a 4-WAR player. I'll ask you this question.
Yeah.
Right now, if the Padres called the Phillies and said, we'll trade Fernando Tatis to you for Nick Castellanos and a young pitching prospect, would you make that deal?
I wouldn't take him under most any circumstances, even though Castellanos is not hitting at all. And would I want more pitching? I wouldn't want $36 million a year starting 4 years from now, because that's when you'll be really paying the price, especially if he never hits.
Okay.
No.
Every contract is movable then if the issue only comes down to money.
Really?
What would you take? What would you take Tatis out then?
How many clubs do you think would say yes to Tatis right now?
Right now, I think there's 7 or 8 would say yes to Tatis.
Oh, see, I'm thinking it's more like 1-0.
1-0? 1-0 would take Fernando right now, according to Brian Kenny. Dude, get out of here. Holy cow. I'm like speechless. Teams wouldn't take Fernando. Has he looked at the contract? How much will free agents be making per year? I'm talking about superstar free agents in 2029. Because this year he's making 11. Next year he's making 20. 26 he's making 20. 27 he's making 25. And then 28 he's making 25. That's like nothing for a superstar player. That's better than $40 million a year. And he's worried about once it starts at 36 mil in 2029 when he's 30. Does he think that when Tatis is 30, he's going to fall off a cliff? That he's going to be outside of his prime? It's not like he's going to be 40. His contract, by the way, runs till he's 35, not 40. The Padres have some guys under contract when they're 40. That's not this. I think there are plenty of teams that would take Fernando Tatis Jr. I think that teams, when he signed that, they were like, man, that's a good deal for the Padres. Maybe it's a little bit of a risk, but you see the talent there. And yeah, he hasn't been the same offensively after the suspension. But there are other things that go into that. Not just, oh, well, he was taking steroids, so that's why he's not as good. Why would we trade Fernando, right? So MLB Network, they're on MLB Now, Kenny and Dan O'Dowd. I don't even think it was Dan O'Dowd that's like, yeah, I'd love to have this discussion. I think it's Brian Kenny that's more pushing this. Why would the Padres trade Fernando? They're not going. That would be stupid. He is one of the faces of the franchise. He's one of the most popular players in franchise history. And he's one of the superstars of the game. Is he performing at the Fernando 2021 level right now? No. But he's still one of the stars of the game. You have him under a good contract. It's a pretty team-friendly contract, especially the first part of this contract. Someone you're building around, just won the Platinum Glove last year. Top of your order, your number 2 hitter. Why would the Padres deal him? It's not like it's 1 year left of control, where with Soto it did make some sense. Or with Tatis, you have him under control for what, another decade? When do we see that in baseball, by the way? I mean, the Marlins, right, they traded Stanton with a lot of control, but they couldn't afford him. Like, that's different. Where with the Padres, you've got big attendance. The revenue hopefully will increase when they can find a way to get the TV deal or whatever happens here. A lot of tickets are being sold. A lot of merch is being sold. They can pay for the Fernando Tatis Jr. contract. What team trades a guy who's under contract for like the next decade? I don't remember that happening. So it's just not going to happen. But here we are talking about it because freaking Brian Kenny and MLB Network, they bring up that as a potential talking point because I guess there's nothing else to talk about in Major League Baseball other than, hey, let's try to trade Fernando from the Padres. It's just not going to happen. Preller in his office probably watching that, probably laughing his butt off